Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's important to say, but in all walks of life, family truly does come first. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I am the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and pick their brains not just about current projects, but state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, and between you and me, I certainly hope that you do, you can find us over on Apple, over on Spotify, or you can find every single one of our episodes archived over at our YouTube channel. We'd love it if you'd follow us on social media as well, either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One, for all sorts of updates over on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And finally, please do us the kindness of visiting us where it all began, over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest movie news, reviews, and any sorts of fun things that we can cook up under the sun. But before I tell you who is on today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about just staying at home and watching movies, because right now it's kind of important. Just global health crisis and all, but if you're kind of running out of the TV options and the streaming options, may I recommend our friends over at Bay Street Video, 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And they've got such a huge selection of DVD and Blu-ray for all your curbside pickup needs if you're here in Toronto. But also they do ship now, so for a nominal charge, they will ship it to you anywhere in the world. You can get a hold of them and ask them what they have available over at 416-964-9088, or you can send them an email over at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com. Okay, on this episode, as it were, depending on when you're listening to it, we're talking about family. We're talking about the film My Little Sister, which opened for virtual cinema here in Toronto and at various locations all across the world, or North America at the very least, I should say, from our friends over at Film Movement. And it is starring two fantastic actors, Nina Hoss and Lars Eldinger, and it is the story of, twin brother and sister. And Lisa, played by Nina Hoss, has to sort of bid goodbye to her ambitions as a playwright and sort of living in the Berlin art scene. And she lives in Switzerland with her husband, and she's happy. He runs a school. But her brother, who is a renowned actor, falls ill, and she returns to Berlin to take care of him. And it sets her entire life into a bit of an upheaval, but it's an emotionally resonant and really sort of very well done film. And we had the distinct pleasure of talking with the writers and directors of the film, Stéphanie Chuat and Véronique Reymond. And we asked them just a little bit about sort of the inspiration for the story, how it all came together, how they got started, sort of the parallels between theater and film, and, why am I going to tell you what we talked about? Why don't you go listen to what we talked about? Enjoy.
Now, obviously, first off, I just want to say congratulations on the film. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Walk me through sort of the origin of the story.
Well, thank you first.
Thanks.
The origin, there are several origins. The first one is that we speak French, but we were interested and curious to work with non-French speaking actors, because each culture has another approach of acting. We love British actors, US actors, and also German actors, because they have a physicality and a way to embody their characters that we like a lot. And we had discovered Nina Hoss in the movie from Christian Petzold, Barbara.
Oh, yes.
In 2012. And we had her in mind. And when we thought of a new project, we thought about Switzerland, because we come from Switzerland, and the expats in Switzerland, who are the foreigners in Switzerland, actually, who are the non-French speaking persons. And as we are very close to the mountains, we often go since always we live in Lausanne and we go skiing, and my parents had a cabin there. Véronique also goes to the mountains, and there are many boarding schools in the mountains. So we always saw these children, students, and like this inner world in Switzerland, a very closed world, very difficult to have access. You cannot really get in touch with them. And so we imagined, what if someone like Nina Hoss would be in this world, and maybe she could be the wife of the director. So we had this first part of the story in mind since maybe 1 year and a half, when
we met by chance Nina Hoss in a shop in Berlin. And that was a kind of shock for us, because I had a collection of her pictures on my laptop, and suddenly I see her for real. And it was such a shock that we just forget her name completely. We didn't remember how she was called. And Stéphanie told me we have to talk to her. And we said, okay, let's talk to her. And it was, so we went to her. She was on the phone. We had to wait. We had to buy some stuff to wait until she was done with her phone call. And then we introduced ourselves, and we said, hi, we are 2 Swiss directors, and we are writing a movie for you. Do you have time for a coffee? And she was a bit surprised. Said, oh yes, let's see. It was the Berlinale 2015, and she was overwhelmed with rendezvous and so on. But then she said, well, maybe I have a little slot on Friday. And we said, okay. We gave her our phone number, and then we thought she will never call us back, because it's just so weird, these 2 girls from Switzerland just coming by like this. But she did call back, and we met for real, I would say officially, a couple of days later. And then that was the big for us beginning of this adventure, because while meeting with her, we had so much in common, so many common references, also connected to the theater milieu, because we come from the theater. Actually, we formed as actresses, and we understood that she was member of the Schaubühne in Berlin, that she was connected to Thomas Ostermeyer, Lars Heidinger, and we knew Thomas Ostermeyer and Lars Heidinger already. And suddenly all the theater milieu just came into our story, located in Switzerland, in the mountain in Switzerland. We thought this is so interesting to have a kind of mirror between 2 completely different opposite worlds, that how we came to this story, and to the twin brother, and then also to the sickness and all this relationship.
For sure. And I mean, I've got to imagine, I love the story of just how you met Nina, because I'm fortunate enough to have interviewed her myself, and she's such a lovely person, but she does have a presence and a powerhouse to her. And I'm kind of curious that it must have been a sort of a pressure-filled pitch on your end to sort of sell the story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pressure, because she's so brilliant. She's a brilliant and clever person, but she's full of humanity. This heartful person, on dit, plein de cœur. Yeah. And really, it was so interesting to have her from the beginning of this writing process adventure, because we were always thinking, because we always also went through personal experiences, kind of difficult times through the writing process, but she was always there, and we knew we have to send them the next version, we have to send them the next treatment, the next version of the script, and she was always there. She would be completely faithful.
But what Véronique means is that we had the personal losses while writing. So it was not directly connected to the writing, but our personal lives. Véronique lost her father, and I lost my mother, who was sick for 10 months very intensively while the writing was going on. So we had always this light being Nina Hoss, and it helped us going through these losses, because the meaning of life itself is questioned in this moment.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a film that really does sort of highlight the fact that you can't sort of quantify grief. You can't as much as people want to help you and want to sort of help you grieve when people are faced with those situations, they really can't, because the grieving experience is so unique from person to person. And I'm kind of curious, can you talk me through about pairing Nina with Lars? Because it is such a perfect pairing, having them both play off each other. And it really does feel like sort of both sort of ends of the emotional spectrum when you're dealing with something like this?
As we come from theater and are actresses, we have known the Schaubühne, Thomas Ostermeyer and Lars Heidinger since years. And we had seen Lars acting in many plays. And as we live in Lausanne, the Schaubühne came several times in Lausanne to act. And as we know Thomas, we could meet a little bit Lars some years ago before having this idea. And when we met Nina and she told us she was a member of the Schaubühne, we immediately thought of Lars and Thomas. And it was really so natural that we imagined immediately, so where would this woman come from? Oh, she come from Berlin. And what if she came of the theater milieu? And what if she had a brother? And what if he would be twin? And why not being Lars? And it was very organic, in the sense very natural for us, because we come also from this milieu. And then we went to see Lars acting some months after having met Nina in the theater in Berlin. He remembered us and we talked to him about the project, and he immediately said yes, because they had been to acting school together. They had known each other since 25 years old, since they are 20 years old and since 25 years so. And they have this sibling relationship from school, from having been student actors together, and it creates an incredible bond between them. And it was really so fortunate to have this, because it helped a lot to build the characters, because they had it in them. As Véronique and I, because Véronique and I have known since we are 10 years old, we are childhood friends, and we have a parallel way, we have grown up together as artists, and we have this kind of twin link, and we really wanted to find two actors who had that, and by an incredible chance, they have it from their training as actors.
That's amazing. Now, I mean, something else I really appreciate about the film is that it never tries to go over the top with the emotion. It keeps a very sort of kind of measured and almost humanistic tone when it's sort of going along its course. And I'm kind of curious, how important was it from both of your perspectives when working with the actors to make sure that it never got too over the top, I guess is the right word to say?
Yeah, it's always a challenge when you deal with emotions, but we knew that we have to be very delicate with this and not to give too much, because too much, let's say, less is more and too much is over. And this is very, very delicate, and we were very, very careful about it, because we knew that there are 2 or 3 moments of deep emotion, or I would say even explosion of feelings that are written in the script. And we knew there was one very strong moment in the hospital, when there are 2 moments, I would say. The one when she's at the coffee machine, she's overwhelmed with emotions, because she just doesn't expect that a completely stranger comes and offers her a coffee, actually something completely simple, and she has a big emotion at this moment. And then later at the very ending, she has a big explosion also of emotions. But in between, we have to be in the life and very concrete. She's dealing with concrete stuff all the time to really manage to be the mother, the wife, the sister, and also a teacher, and trying to connect back to her own creativity in all this. And this is all, there are many layers for her, and we wanted always to be very much in the life and not too much into over emotions. But it was really, really difficult, I would say, already in the writing, to make sure that we are on this thin line, that we never go too much on one side or too much on the other.
No, for sure. And it's one of those things that is a hard line to walk. And I mean, something else about the film, and I mean, I love that you both have a theater background, because I was struck just in terms of sort of the staging and the framing of it all. There isn't necessarily, like, there are moments where you're hanging on people, especially with Nina at the end in the very last shot. And there's moments where it's a wider shot, but there isn't a wasted sort of inch of space. And I'm kind of curious, how do you think your sort of theater backgrounds has translated in terms of telling a story sort of on the screen?
How our theater background is kind of translated on the screen. What I can say, après tu continues. What I can say is really that we are completely connected to the acting process. Yeah, it's completely characters driven. And when you're watching, I would say, a play on stage, it's about acting. The actors are giving life to stories on stage. And we as actresses, we write stories for actors, really. And that's why we need huge actors to play the roles we write, because it's hugely difficult, actually. And that maybe the way we do to go to, I would say, the connection between the two of them, and it's really characters driven. Then the picture is something, I would say, the camera was really kind of dancing. It was a choreography, how to be so close to them, but still it was very elaborated. We really worked on it to make it look so fluent and almost like a documentary sometimes, but it was really also very much thought with the DP before.
But maybe what I could add is, even if we write for the actors and we are focused on the actors, when we stage the scene, so we decide the distance between the camera and the actors, we are very careful not to glue to the actors, not to be, in like extreme close-ups, to be as close as possible to the emotion. In the contrary, we try to have some distance when there are maybe the highest emotional moments, so the audience can decide to which distance they want to be. Because if you force the people to stick to the actors in very emotional moments, you force them to be emotional. And when you have a bit more distance, the audience can choose their perspective and where they want to be regarding to what's going on. Or we created in the movie also some mute moments only with music, because we wanted to give some air to the story, to allow people to choose where they want to be with this story. We really try not to take the audience as hostage of the emotion of the story. For us, it's extremely important that the audience had always the freedom to choose where they want to be regarding to the story.
I think that's why I love the final shot of the film so much, where you just rest on Nina, and it because it's emotion and it's character, but without dialogue, and it really sort of encapsulates the entire story. And I just thought it was a beautiful thing just to see, to allow that moment to breathe, to let sort of the character work come through again without any dialogue. And it's an important thing that sometimes gets lost in movies like this.
Yes, and we, as you maybe have seen, it's a lot of chaos in all the movie. The whole movie, it's moving a lot, and the camera is moving a lot. But the very first scene, it's a kind of prologue, is completely quiet.
Yes.
And the ending is also completely quiet. And in between is full of life and energy and mess.
Now, I'm curious, for you two, from a personal perspective, what sort of transitioned? I mean, not only what got you into the business in general, but what transitioned you maybe from theater to working in film? Or do you want to go back and forth? Or do you go back and forth?
Since 10 years, we really did theater for years, and we started to include video in our theater plays. That's how we started to do films. So we didn't make any school for filmmaking. We did a part of school of acting, but pretty soon we were doing things, and we really learn by doing things. So once we had started to deal with cinema, we really were very curious, made short films while doing also theater. But then from our first feature in 2010, The Little Bedroom, we really went on the other side of the lens, I could say. But everything influences everything in our work, because we also do some documentaries.
Okay.
We did documentary, and for us, the truth that you find in documentary, because no one is acting, is very important for when it comes to fiction, because we try always to have the same truth in our fictional characters than in our real characters in documentaries.
I love that. That's absolutely true, and it's so important. And I'm kind of curious, for both of you, thinking back younger days, is there a play or is there a movie for both of you that sort of inspired you to get you into the business?
I was 7 years old when I watched Singing in the Rain,
Oh, lovely. Okay.
and it was a shock. You remember, I couldn't sleep after. I just thought this is what I have to do. I didn't know at all what clue what it would be, but it was just, there was so much joy in it. I think those people were so joyful that I felt this is what I have to do. Yeah.
And for me, as movie have come through theater, it was, I can't really say I have a déclic, like an epiphany, really, because also the milieu I come from is not at all an artistical milieu. So it's nothing, I mean, you wouldn't even dare of being an artist. It doesn't mean anything kind of from the milieu where I come. So I can just remember some pictures or things I saw. And actually, one of the first feature I saw, it's incredible. I look very intellectual when I say that, but it's L'Argent de Poche from François Truffaut, a black
Okay.
and white movie. And I really remember this, the character, because I liked, he had like a sailor shirt with
Yes. Yeah.
and I like the shirt of this boy, I think. But then it's really, I more had an epiphany that I wanted to be an actress and that it could be a job I could do. I remember exactly the moment I was teenager and I realized, but I can try to make my life out of that. And I told my parents, I have to try because I don't want to be in 15 years frustrated. I didn't dare trying. So it was more about dare trying to do what you dream of. And I would never have thought I would turn into a filmmaker. This it was really so life is really surprising, and thanks to the great friendship we have, maybe we follow, sometimes we dare to follow some path. By yourself you wouldn't dare, but into we encourage ourselves and we think, yeah, if we fail, what, and what, it's an experience.
For sure. Now, I mean, and they say, and I mean, especially when you're mounting a production or if you're mounting a film, they always say it takes a village, but in many times we always see one person sort of leading that charge. But for you, it's two, and you have to have a unified voice, I have to imagine, on set. And I'm kind of curious, what do you think it is with the dynamic between the both of you, not only the friendship, but sort of the professional sort of dynamic that allows you to both sort of have a unified voice when you're trying to lead a project like this?
So on the set, we are very much together. When we write, during the writing process, it's a bit different because we are very different and we are very complementary. And sometimes I'm more the writer one, completely alone in my room and like autistic and obsessional. And Stephanie would, I would say, read, come back, have the feedbacks, and then write again. But I'm more this kind of train locomotive in the writing process, and you're more the on dit quoi, ministre des Affaires extérieures.
Yeah, because I take care of the other projects and to know where our projects will be existing in reality.
But on the set, we are completely together, like really two minds or two heads in one body. And we never decide who is talking to who. We want to be completely fresh and spontaneous also when we're on the sets. And I go to talk to the technical crew while Stephanie is going to talk to the actors, and then it's going to be the opposite. And we never want to decide before because we want to be in our present very much. And we never argue on the set because we think it's a loss of time actually. And since we know each other very well, we are very quick in these decisions. We know, we just look at, it's like taking 1 minute, okay, and then we go. And it's interesting because the actors never ask, but who's the boss? Who's the director? They never ask this to us. It's kind of obvious that we are an entity, and yeah, they just can talk to to me or to Stephanie. It's the same because it's absorbed by the duet and then goes through our, I would say, machine and out again, like a unique voice.
But then, for example, in editing, we were here all the time, and we are this is another story, because we want to reach the same goal, but we don't always have the same ideas to go there. So it's a lot of discussion, and everyone fight for our ideas. So the solutions we found, it's important. They are never a compromise between the two of us. It's really a discussion until we are sure in our guts we feel it's right. So yeah, it's interesting that in the set we are completely agree, but then we can really have very different opinions, and it's what we like, because it's always we are really two personalities, and throughout the years we have learned to use each other's strengths instead of being in a competition. That's the advantage of knowing each other since
For
so many
sure.
years. We have learned that, and that's why it's so interesting, because we are in a very egotic milieu, very selfish, and we always share. We share the good things, we share the difficulties, and I think on a human point of view, it's really a huge gift, because it makes you evaluate as a human being. So the day you die, hopefully you are a little bit more clever, or you have understood some things of life. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. It's important we do this job because we try to convey things we believe in and we are ready to fight for years. And it's such an incredible, it takes a village, how you said, to make a movie, but it's very long and it can be so difficult. And you have to have very strong hopes and belief to carry on this for years.
How do you figure you stay strong enough to the creative ideal of the story that you want to tell, especially these days in the media landscape where there's so much to watch and there's so many different options? How do you sort of stay true to your creative voice as you're pushing through, not only to make it, but to sell it and to push on and to get it out there in the universe?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because all our projects, when all what we did until now in the movie field, it's always when we come with a new project, people say, "Oh, really? You want to talk about that?" The first one was The Little Bedroom, about an old guy who doesn't want to go to a nursing home and a home care who just lost a baby. And we just made a couple out of these two characters, and it was very difficult to finance and to have people believe in it. But then it was a real success in Switzerland. And then we made a documentary about elder ladies who feel alone and can't find love at 65 years old, and they try to have, I would say, a love life still, and it's difficult for them. And everybody said, "Oh, it's not glamour, this subject. Why?" And we said, because we need to talk about this, because it's also our fears. So we have to express our inner fears. And we managed to make the movie. And now with my little sister, again, it's a tough subject, and we know it. But still, I don't know where we are digging in ourselves to find these ideas, but it's never glamour. It's always difficult for the financing, but still it's maybe connected to our ideals of growing in terms of humanity, souls, to be connected to each other, and maybe to share something deep and essential.
And you know what? Especially given what's going on in the world right now, having that kind of honesty is a really important thing. And I think that's why this film's going to connect with people. And I just want to say thank you again for the time today, and congratulations on a brilliant film, and good luck with everything on it. And I hope it finds its audience, and because I absolutely loved it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thanks.
And merci beaucoup, and thank you for the time again.
Merci, au
Merci.
revoir.
Au revoir.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.